This is Hannibal here for my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. There's a lot in here that I don't find interesting, that I don't report on, but there's a good amount that I find interesting this week. So let's jump right into it. We'll start off with more information on the Janelle Grant lawsuit, where she has listed Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis and WWE as the defendants. WWE has supposedly not filed their official response to the lawsuit. However, a paper signed by WWE lawyers anticipates them filing a motion to compel arbitration. So WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis are all going to be on the same side of this, saying that this dispute should be settled in arbitration rather than in court. The sides are taking a position that the non-disclosure agreement that Janelle signed, keep in mind, guys, this whole non-disclosure agreement that she signed in exchange for the money, the key word there is non-disclosure. If she wanted to get him punished, she could have either had criminal charges against him, tried to file criminal charges, which she didn't, or she could have taken it to court all the way. She signed a non-disclosure agreement in exchange to taking money, which she didn't abide by. So, according to this non-disclosure agreement, the lawsuit is supposed to go to arbitration rather than to court. Meltzer says Grant will likely argue because Vince McMahon stopped making the payments that the non-disclosure would be invalid, but WWE, well, McMahon's side, let's just say, will be that Grant violated her non-disclosure agreement when the WWE board of directors was told about their affair through an email that was sent by one of Janelle Grant's friends to members of this board, which led to an article in the Wall Street Journal. So, in other words, he stopped paying because the non-disclosure agreement was violated, and the whole point of the non-disclosure agreement and the money given to her was for her to not talk about the situation. McMahon, according to Meltzer, ideas that he shouldn't have to make payments because it wasn't kept secret, and he blames Janelle Grant, the actress, for that. She is an actress, by the way. And all the pictures, if you look at the acting movie clips that are out there of her, they all seem to be around from the 2006 era, and the pictures from her, she's in her 40s now, but if you look at the pictures, she looks to be, unless she doesn't age in 20 years, the only pictures of her out there are that when she was young, which is a little weird. He goes on to say the board was first informed about the Grant lawsuit situation or the Grant affair when a friend of Grant's wrote to the board with the details. So again, this is basically what I just said. So McMahon said because Grant broke the agreement, and part of the agreement was if there was any issues with the agreement, it should be arbitrated and not go to court. So you also, not only is she alleging that she broke the secret aspect of the agreement, but she went to court rather than have it dealt with in arbitration, where supposedly it says right in the agreement, according to what WWE, Laurinaitis, and Vince McMahon are saying, that in the document she signed, it would have to be disputed in arbitration. So WWE and Laurinaitis have filed their motions to compel arbitration. If Grant's lawyer is opposed to that, which probably will be, she has until June 4th to file such papers. And it has come out, as we previously stated, that Grant also had a boyfriend at the time, and Grant has gone to law school, and the boyfriend had also gone to law school. So they were both cheating on their partners. And Grant did receive a lot of money and gifts from Vince McMahon in this affair that went on for years. In other WWE news, Seth Rollins signed a new multi-year contract. He's got to be one of the highest paid wrestlers in the company right now. Becky Lynch, so far, his the mother of his kid and his wife, has not signed a new contract. Tony Khan has stated that he's going to be aggressively going after the free agents, but with the popularity of WC or of I'm calling it WCW. WCW was way better than AEW. That'd be an insult to WCW. With the popularity of AEW dwindling, it's unlikely, unless they get massive amounts of money, that any of these guys would jump ship. We saw Drew McIntyre recently re-signed too. One guy that could eventually jump ship is Jerry Lawler, who's 74 now. His broadcast contract was not renewed. However, he does remain under a Legends contract that are usually only about $10,000 a year. When that Legend contract expires, I mean, you could see him in AEW. I could see them. They hire so many people that they rarely use, like the Jim Rosses and the Jake the Snakes. Is Arn Anderson still under contract with them? That'd be interesting to know. If anyone knows, put that in the description, because I know they fired his son a while ago, but we never heard anything about if Arn Anderson was actually released or not. All these smart people in wrestling that Tony Khan could be picking their brains, but but somebody well with a lot of knowledge in wrestling the other day stated that he is an egomaniac and he refuses to listen to anyone's opinion on the promotion other than the wrestlers that have their own creative control and angles, such as Omega has control over his own angles to an extent, according to reports, Moxley does, and Jericho, etc. Which, by the way, Moxley has been advertised for pretty much all the Canadian shows. I believe he may have wrestled in the Toronto one, but despite being on the poster for every single AEW Canadian show this year, he's only appeared on one of them. They blatantly false advertise Moxley. Who I'm not saying that's bad for Moxley. He's my favorite wrestler from AEW right now, but they blatantly false advertise him, which just makes me hate the company, makes me despise the company. WrestleMania 41 was announced for Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, April 19th and 20th, 2025. They're getting a large site fee to hold WrestleMania there because I guess Vegas is usually slow Easter weekend. That's why it's going to be, this might be the latest WrestleMania of all time, April 19th and 20th. It was announced during the Kentucky Derby by Rollins and Becky Lynch. Backlash in France, which had ridiculously high ticket prices of $300 for ticket, had 11,628 fans in a 16,000 seat arena. The gate topped 3.2 million. SmackDown the night before, which averaged $200 a ticket in Lyon, France, same arena, had less fans, 11,101 fans. Crazy ticket prices. Uh, Apparently, as far as pay-per-view numbers, the people that actually bought it on pay-per-view was 3,900, by far the lowest in company history. However, most people watch it on Peacock. If I would be interested if they didn't have these, obviously they like these streaming services because they don't actually have to make good quality pay-per-views anymore as far as like main events that people actually care to watch. I don't doubt I mean, I've wrestled AJ Styles. I pinned him 2 times in one night. He wrestled me for half an hour. He's got to be good to last with me that long. But nobody expected him to beat Cody Rhodes. Nobody. So of course it had the lowest pay-per-view buy rate in company history and the lowest Google searches in company history. Around 100,000 or less for a WWE pay-per-view. So the reason for that, nobody believed AJ was going to win. It's just a pay-per-view that they received a huge amount of money to do. Went to a place that rarely gets wrestling. Who knows when the last time they were there for? They had a crazy hot crowd, but as far as interest from people outside of France, as I said, I have no doubt. I believe John Paz said the match was good, but to me, a good match is a match where you don't know who's going to win. That's why I thought, as much as I'm not a Cody Rhodes fan, I thought that the Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns WrestleMania match had interest because no one was really sure who was going to win. But when you like, how can you? We know that no one is going to be a challenger to Cody at all, unless like CM Punk challenges him, or The Rock, or Roman Reigns. There's pretty much three people that could beat Cody. Other than that, there's nobody over to the level of while The Rock and Roman Reigns are in a different category than Cody, but Cody's a strong third. Like they're not going to put the belt on anyone else other than those three anytime soon. UFC, by the way, since they're also owned by TKO, their UFC 301 only did 420,000 Google searches, way more than Backlash, but still low for UFC. Meltzer mentions it was one of the weaker pay-per-view lineups in UFC history. I mean, they also get guaranteed pay-per-view money, so they don't have to like sell the best pay-per-views anymore. So to me, as like a casual MMA fan, I'll watch like the knockouts if they show up in my feed or something, but there's nobody. I mean, I'll watch probably the Conor McGregor fight coming up, but there's no one that I have any interest in watching in MMA these days. WWE cut a bunch of talents last week, most notably Gable Stevenson, Olympic champion, which, funny enough, which shows WWE's business mind, they waited until after the Olympic trials to cut him. Anyone that would think that's just a coincidence has to be very naive. Obviously, one of the worst things that could happen for WWE is if Gable Stevenson won the Olympics again and AEW signed him and he became a star in AEW. But they did try and make him a star in WWE. But you know that you're not going to get over when Baron Corbin, who is not exactly one of the wrestlers the fans like or find good over the years, got cheered like a super baby face when he wrestled baby Cable Stevenson, and Corbin was supposed to be the heel. They tried a bunch of times to use Gable Stevenson, most notably at the 2022 WrestleMania, doing an angle with Chad Gable, but it was a flop. So he'll be just fine. He'll go to MMA, and supposedly there's some NFL teams interested in him. He still has a year left of college eligibility, so he could play football or wrestle again next year. He'll only be 28 when the 2028 Olympics take place, so he could also do that. Supposedly, he's been training in MMA with Robbie Lawler, according to Ariel Hawani. Drew Gulak, a nobody that's most known for allegedly touching Ronda Rousey's drawstring, had a job making supposedly over 250,000 a year because it was said he was paid more than any NXT talent. He had a job for like 7 or 8 years, was never over. He's released. Valentina Perez was released, never heard of her, as well as Trey Berry and Kia Saint, all people I never heard of. WWE and USA Network reached an agreement to air Raw from October to December of this year for 25 million, which is a good deal considering for next year they're paying 287 million to have SmackDown on their channel, 287 million per year. A lot of money. But again, it's only 3 months and then Raw moves to Netflix. SmackDown will also be on Netflix in Canada and every other country, from what I understand. It's just in the US where it's going to be on USA. There was a $335 million settlement from TKO in the Chung Lee UFC concussions related case. The fighters will get an average of 140,000 each. They could have had a much worse verdict in court than just paying that, so apparently TKO is happy with that, but they're not really changing anything for the fighters. The $50,000 bonuses that have been there since like 2008, despite inflation, the bonuses are still 50,000. UFC is and WWE, I mean, they're owned by the same people. They're cutthroat business people. It's all about profits. Apparently, the Clash in the Castle upcoming pay-per-view in Glasgow, Scotland, only has 9,800 tickets sold, which you would think they would sell a lot more than that, doing a pay-per-view there, but nope. They did do some good numbers for the recent European tour. April 17th in Birmingham, United Kingdom, 13,000 for $887,000 gate. April 18th in Cardiff, Wales, 4,744 fans. Then this huge one, April 19th in London, 16,342 fans. There was also a house show in Provence, France. I really want to go to France. That might be one of my first trips when I start doing travel blogs. Um, the food and the scenery and the women there, it's quite enticing. They only drew 5,500 to the house show in Provence. May 6th, WWE Raw in Hartford, Connecticut, 9,400. AEW had one of their best crowds in a long time in the wrestling hotbed of Edmonton, Alberta, the same arena where I wrestled Hide and Right on SmackDown before, 14,000 fans, which is almost triple what they had for Dynamite, 4,572. Sky Blue was offended by some comments that one of the fans said during her match. He was kicked out as well as his kid. Apparently, regarding the AEW Dynasty pay-per-view that featured Danielson versus Ospreay, it was down 40%, over 40% from the Revolution pay-per-view. They have an upcoming event, Collision taping in Iowa, that has less than 1,000 tickets out, only 931 tickets out, which is pretty bad. They've been false advertising a lot lately. They false advertised Will Ospreay, John Moxley, Julia Hart, and Daniel Garcia for the Edmonton show. Someone told me the previous week, which I did get confirmation on, they also false advertised Moxley and Ospreay for the Winnipeg show. They don't give a frig who they say. Let's just throw all these people on the poster. We have no intention of bringing them. We're a rich company. These people are under contract, but we're just going to put them on the poster, and no one's going to say anything if they don't come, and nobody is saying anything but me. I don't know. For me, as a fan, if I see someone on the poster and there's like no mention at all of why they're not on the show, like for Moxley, they advertise them for London, Ottawa, Quebec City, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. That's 5 shows they advertised him for that he wasn't on. You cannot tell me that this is just unintentional. I mean, to me, that really annoys me. Japanese wrestling business is not doing well right now. They had a show May 6th in Budokan Hall that featured wrestlers from New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, DDT, AEW, Stardom, Big Japan, and Dragon's Gate, and drew just over 4,000 fans, which is horrible. In fact, wrestling is much more popular in Mexico right now. The May 3rd CMLL show, which was just a regular show at Arena Mexico, drew over 10,000 fans. TNA did some shows in Albany, New York, which were papered as usual. 450 approximate fans for the first night, 300 for the second night. MMA news, UFC 301. The prelims did a 0.33 rating, and the early prelims did a 0.25 rating. Derek Lewis, speaking, I mean, I have nothing against Derek Lewis, but he doesn't have the greatest record. He has had some impressive knockouts, but supposedly he's in talks with WWE, and it's like he's 39 years old. Cain Velasquez was a flop. It's not like he's a really known UFC fighter. He's older and he has no training, and apparently they're in talks to bring him in. To me, I just don't like seeing that. HEF, I do think Hands of Stone, Ronnie Garvin would knock out Derek Lewis. I could tell you that. Which, by the way, the Million Dollar Man, I saw a recent podcast of the Million Dollar Man, Ted DiBiase, who I also have an interview on this channel. He said Ronnie Garvin was an underrated worker and WWE blew it by giving him that referee's gimmick when he had his WWE run. Neil's son, Tony collecting his toys. Yes, he collects toys, and there's a lot of these toys that he doesn't even use. He just likes to say, "Oh, I got all these wrestlers under contract." But good for the wrestlers. Honestly, good for the wrestlers. There's good things about AEW and there's bad things. And some of the bad things, I mean, by the way, they only did a 0.24 this rating this week. Okay, so they've been doing 0.23, 0.24s lately. The Tony Khan angle where he had one of the most fake looking meetings ever and made a joke of himself with the neck brace when he didn't sell it. It's safe to say that angle was a flop. Someone talks about WrestleMania 3. Yes, that was one of my favorite WrestleManias. Thank you, Benjamin. AEW has not made a profit yet. In fact, according to Brandon Thurston Neal, they lost $34 million last year. That's just a write-off to these billionaires. Grandma Daisy, I'll ask John about that. But he did give me an interview. John, I got a bunch of interviews from him this week. Posted one with Harley Race. There's one with Virgil. There's one with Cody Rhodes that I'll post today. And Butcher Vachon just before he died, which he does not sound good in there. Can we have Braun Breaker in the main event yet? You know, I would have honestly kept the belt on Roman and made Braun Breaker the champion eventually. Maybe had Roman win at WrestleMania, give everyone a surprise because everyone knew Cody was going to win. Then work towards Braun Breaker at WrestleMania against Cody or against Reigns next year, but looks like it's going to be The Rock versus Cody next year. Braun Breaker has the best upside of anyone in WWE. Piper's doing great. Trade by Sin. Your comments not coming up. I'll blame that on the Rogers Wi-Fi. Rogers internet is really bad. I wouldn't recommend it to people. Horrible connection issues. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get your comment up for Trade by Sim, but it's not coming up. Please give this video a thumbs up. If there's more news later, I'll get it to you. And as I said, I'll post that Cody Rhodes interview with John Paz later tonight.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos,